Act 1 of Paul Jones by Alexandre Dumas, translated by William Berger. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Dramatis Personae.
Marquis Doré, read by Amy Graymore.
The Marchioness,
His wife.
read by Sonia.
Count Emmanuel,
Their son.
read by Thomas Peter.
Margaret,
Their daughter.
read by Lian Yao.
Baron de Lecteur, read by Nemo.
Paul Jones, read by Todd.
Louis Achard, read by Thomas Copeland.
Monsieur de la Jarrie, read by Roger Moline.
Mr. Denozy, read by Recording Person.
The Notary, read by James Curran.
La Fée,
Valet to the Marchioness, read by
Son of the Exiles.
Jasmine,
Valet to Emmanuel,
read by Eva Davis.
Stage directions, read by Sandra. Scene: Castle Doré in Brittany, France, year 1779. Act 1. Scene 1. A saloon. Furniture of the time of Louis XIII. A door in the centre, two side doors, a chimney piece, a looking glass on the top, a window on the right side of the spectator. Enter Count Emmanuel, Jasmin, La Feuille, and 3 servants. Emmanuel, stretching himself in an armchair.
Jasmin, I crowned the postilion, a clever fellow, who only upset me twice since I left Vannes. What roads! Upon my soul, I must search our family records for some old vassalage law to make those peasants repair the roads.
To a servant, in the livery of the time of Louis XV., who is bowing to him.
Well, La Feuille, very well. I am glad to see you again.
And I, my lord.
Yes, I understand what you mean.
May all the blessings of heaven
descend in your throat. Enough, there is something to drink.
To the other servants.
And this for you. Jasmin, inform the Marchioness of my arrival, and say I await her orders either to pay my respects to her in her own apartment, or attend a presence here. For you, my venerable fellows, your services are needed elsewhere. Away, to business.
Exeunt, La Feuille in the act of following them.
La Feuille, what news in my absence? My father?
Always the same, neither better nor worse.
His reason still estranged?
'Tis hard to say, sir. He will see no one but milady.
Not even his children? But my sister?
Always mourning. 'Tis a sad thing to see her tears. Poor young lady! She never quits the chateau except to visit old Achard.
Still in his cottage in the park?
Which he never leaves but for the old oak tree, under which he rests himself. There he remains for hours. I believe he even prays there.
Strange old man. Does the Marchioness always send you to supply his wants?
Yes, my lord. I wait on him, but never do I hear any word pass his lips save good day, good morning, thank you, La Feuille. Nothing more.
'Tis well, La Feuille. Place those pistols on the side table. They are loaded. You know my mother is afraid of firearms.
Here is my lady.
Leave us, good La Feuille.
Enter Marchioness, dressed in black, slowly through centre door. Exit La Feuille. Emmanuel goes towards her, kneels, and takes her hand.
Madam, by your leave.
Rise, my son. I rejoice to see you once again.
Emmanuel conducts her to an armchair. She perceives the pistols and trembles.
What has alarmed you, mother?
Nothing.
Sits down.
I received your letter, my son, and congratulate you. You appear born for diplomacy more than for the army, and should have solicited the Baron de Lectoure to procure you an embassy instead of a regiment.
And he will certainly succeed, madam, for he has great influence, and is, moreover, so deeply in love.
In love with a woman he has never seen.
Oh, madam, the Lecteur is a man of sense, and all he hears of our family but increases his desire of the alliance. Besides, he is worthy of it. His ancestry is noble, descended from the royal family of Scotland. It is a most suitable match. He has insisted that all the preliminary ceremonies should be gone through in his absence. Has the approaching marriage been publicly proclaimed?
Yes, all has been arranged.
Then we can sign the contract tomorrow evening, on Lecteur's arrival.
And did he not question you respecting Lusignan? Did he not inquire why our family solicited the order for his banishment?
No, madam. Such services are so common they are forgotten the next day. Besides, it is generally considered a family secret, that none dare question. I alone shall not forget that wretch.
And wherefore?
Because I yet may be revenged by other means than those.
Oh, say not so, my son, if you would have me live.
Emmanuel, passing his hand across his brow.
You are right, mother. What is done cannot be undone. We must forget the past.
Then he knows nothing.
Nothing. But shall I explain, madam? Should he know all?
Well?
I doubt not his resolution would still remain unalterable.
Then he is ruined.
The case with most of our young noblemen. But his influence is great with the king's brother, in whose household he occupies a post of trust.
'Tis well. We can retrieve his broken fortunes without impairing our own. This marriage ensures the happiness of at least one of my children. I will not confine you forever to this lone chateau, far from all amusement, near a father deprived of reason, who refuses to behold the children his heart no longer knows. It is for me, worn and wretched as I am, to watch your father in these gloomy walls, while you, my children, young and gay, should seek for pleasure and enjoyment.
Emmanuel, kissing her hand.
Best of parents, it is my sister alone who, by her obstinacy—
Your sister will bear in mind that her obedience alone can make me forget her fault, and rest assured she will obey.
Pardon my mother, my desire to see this match concluded, although my duty soon will call me from you. But you well know how insignificant my life has been till now. My name, rendered so famous by my ancestors, so honourable by you, is a reproach to me, who have done nothing to add new lustre to its brightness. At my age my grandfather was a general, my father the king's first equerry. These are names which should not be forgotten, stars in the heavens which must not be extinguished. My poor father, who for the last 20 years has not appeared at court, was completely forgotten by our late king at his death, and by our present monarch, on his accession to the throne of France. New sprigs spring up in the place of aged trunks, and when I presented myself at Versailles, hardly was our name, the glorious ancient name of Marquis d'Array, known at our young court.
Marchioness, vehemently.
Rest assured that name will yet sound loud enough in royal ears. But for their majesties, may heaven's choicest blessings rest on them and France.
Who could oppose an obstacle to their happiness? Louis XVI, young and good, Marie Antoinette, young and beautiful, surrounded by a brave nobility, adored by a loyal people. Thank heaven fate has placed them beyond the reach of all misfortunes.
Alas, my son, who is free from error and human weakness? No heart, though it be hidden by the purple, is passionless. The coroneted brow of kings the snow of grief may whiten in a single night. Nobility, say you?
Going to an open window.
Behold those trees. Spring saw them in the glory of their verdure, and scarcely has the breath of winter chilled them. See, they are barren, their leaves fallen. They are beloved by a faithful people. Look at that sea, how peaceful, how calm. Tomorrow, this night, perhaps this very hour, may bear to us the blast which tells of the unfortunate victims buried in its depth. Although not living in the vortex of the world, strange reports have sometimes reached my ear. Has there not arisen a sect of philosophers who count among their number men of high renown? Do they not speak of an entire world which, like a floating island, has separated from the mother country? Rebel children who refuse submission to their parent? Of a people styling themselves a nation? Have I not heard descendants of an ancient race of nobles have crossed the sea to offer rebel swords, which their ancestors were only wont to draw at the call of their legitimate sovereigns? And have I not been told, or is it but a dream of my imagination, that Louis XVI. And Marie Antoinette, forgetting that all sovereigns are a family of children, have sanctioned those armed crusades, and given letters of marque to heaven knows what pirate?
All this is true, madam.
Marchioness solemnly.
Then may heaven watch over France.
Exit slowly without looking back. Emmanuel, alone, seeing his mother depart.
This dreary castle inspires her with all these sad and sinister ideas, as if some dreadful crime had been committed which lays a heavy load upon the conscience of its inmates. I doubt futurity the moment I enter its walls. When shall I quit them?
Enter Jasmin, handing a card to Emmanuel.
For you, my lord.
A card. Mr. Paul. Who is that, Mr. Paul?
Enter Paul Jones.
I am he, sir.
Emmanuel, haughtily.
It appears, sir, that you are extremely anxious to see me.
Paul, bowing.
I confess, Count, that I set great value on the interview which I hope you will do me the favour to honour me with.
You have a manner, sir, of requesting a favour which admits of no chance of refusal. Pray, be seated, if this conference is to be of any duration.
Paul, sitting down quietly.
Willingly, for I have much to say to you.
Speak, sir.
Request your servant to leave the room.
Emmanuel to Jasmin.
Leave us.
Exit Jasmin.
Now, sir, let me know whom I have the honour of addressing.
I am the captain on board whose ship young Lusignan was banished to Cayenne.
Emmanuel, fixing his looks on him.
Impossible.
Paul remains seated, carelessly.
Yet I am he. 'Tis true, the last time but one we met, when in Brest you did me the honour to visit me on board my ship, I wore long black hair, a large straw hat, and a sailor's pea-jacket. All these change the appearance of a man. Above all, if to his costume he adds the strong country accent of Low Britain.
Emmanuel, looking at him attentively.
Indeed, sir. I believe I recollect, beneath the hat you speak of, I saw a pair of eyes bright as yours. I've not forgotten them. Then that captain called himself by the name under which you call on me, Mr. Paul.
Paul bows.
But you said it was the last time but one I had the honour of seeing you. Assist my memory, sir, I beg, for I do not recollect the last time.
The last time, Count, was in Paris a week ago, at a fencing match at the residence of the naval minister's son. Then I was an American officer, by the name of Jones. Light hair, blue uniform, navy underdress. I had the honour to fence with you, and to hit you 3 times, while you, I believe, did not hit me once.
Strange. Yes, this is the look, yet it cannot be the same person.
Because heaven willed that a man's eye should be the only feature he could not disguise, he imparted a spark of his heavenly glow to it. Captain Paul is the same as the American Jones. The American Jones is the gentleman now before you.
And today, sir, whom are you pleased to represent?
Myself, for I have no motive for any disguise. Nevertheless, if you have a preference for any particular nation, I shall be what you desire.
Proceed, sir.
Be it so, Count. France is the land of my birth, the son of France the first my eyes beheld. And although I have visited countries more fertile, seen suns more brilliant, still for me there ever has existed but one country, but one sun.
Emmanuel, ironically.
Your enthusiasm, sir, makes you forget the business that procured me the favour of this visit.
It is now 2 years since, as you were promenading the harbour of Brest, you saw amongst the numerous ships in port a brig, with a slender waist, high towering masts, and you judge the master of that vessel must have had powerful reasons to trade with a ship carrying so much sail and so little lumber. Thence you imagined I was a pirate, a freebooter, corsair.
Was I mistaken?
I believe, Count, I have already expressed my admiration of your superior judgment of men and matters at first sight.
No compliments, sir. To the point, if you please.
In this persuasion, then, you came on board my vessel, and there you met Captain Paul. You were the bearer of an order from the Minister of the Navy ordering any officer bound on foreign service, if required by you, to transport to Cayenne a certain Lusignan, guilty of a crime of state.
'Tis true.
I obeyed, sir, for I was at that time sailing under the French flag, and I knew not—
Here Emmanuel rises and comes nearer to Paul.
Then that this said Lusignan had committed no other crime than that of having been the favoured lover of Margaret Doré, your sister.
Emmanuel, touching his shoulder.
Sir.
Paul, rising and taking carelessly one of the pistols.
You have very handsome firearms, Count.
And loaded, sir.
Is their aim true?
If you will take a walk with me, I should be happy to try them together with you.
Thank you, Count. I know these pistols. They are the make of a celebrated German armourer. I won their fellows from St. George's. Of course you know him, the colonel of the American regiment. He laid a wager to cut 12 balls, one after the other, on the blade of a knife. He did not miss a single one.
And how could you win after this?
Because I cut them more in the centre than he did.
This is foreign to the proposal I had the honour to make to you. You are a clever shot, that's all.
Paul, inattentively.
Why should I not be? During our long days of calm, when not a breath of wind ruffles that mirror of heaven, the sea, we sailors, isolated and solitary, are obliged to accept such recreations as come within our reach. Thus do we practise our skill on the unwary swallows that seek for shelter on our spars, or the wild sea-gulls, whose plaintive cry on their approach announces the returning breeze, and become somewhat expert in an exercise apparently so strange in our profession.
Emmanuel, after a moment's silence.
Proceed, sir.
He was a good and brave young man, that Lusignan. He told me his history, how that ardent, profound, irresistible love grew in their hearts like Paolo and Francesca, and how your sister repeated to him the words of the young girl of Verona, thine till death.
Emmanuel, biting his lip.
And too well did she keep her word.
He told me of their mutual love, for a long time chaste as that of angels, his projects to create himself a name great as Alexander's, that he might lay his laurels at the feet of his beloved, his long and respectful suit with your mother, her haughty refusal and bitter railings, which he submitted to, as if no human heart was beating in his bosom. He told me of his grief, his tears, his despair when commanded by your sister to quit this neighbourhood. He spoke to me of that night of farewell agony and woe.
Out of a disgrace.
Yes, you call it disgrace, shame, when a poor girl, alone and friendless, yields to her age, her passion, and her love. Well, they were separated, but she had fallen. Your mother, who might perhaps have saved the honour of her child if sacred duties had not severed them, for I know the virtues of your mother as well as the misfortunes of your sister, a haughty and stern lady, who has no other advantage over others than that of having never failed. Your mother, I say, one night heard vainly smothered cries. She entered the chamber of your sister, approached her bed pale and speechless, tore in cold blood a new-born infant from her arms, while from poor Margaret's lips not even a sigh, complaint, or cry escaped. She had fainted on beholding her mother. Am I right, Count? Am I well informed? Or have I forgotten some minor details in this tragic history?
None.
They are transcribed in those letters of your sister, which Lusignan delivered to my charge when about separating from me, to herd with miscreants and criminals, that I might restore them to the unfortunate writer.
Give them to me, sir, and I swear they shall be returned faithfully to her who was imprudent enough
to complain to the only being who loved her in this world. Is it not so? Imprudent girl, from whom a mother tears her darling child, and who dares to pour her bitter sorrows into the bosom of the father of her babe. Imprudent sister, who finds no friendship in a brother's heart. Abandoned by her father, oppressed by a stern mother, might compromise her noble family by signing with her illustrious name letters which may, how call you that young gentleman? Blast her excursion, is it not?
As you are so well aware of the importance of those papers, why not fulfill your mission and deliver them to my sister, to my mother, or to me?
He stretches his hand for them.
I landed at Brest with that intention. But about a fortnight since, on entering a church—
Emmanuel, ironically.
A church?
Yes, sir.
And wherefore, if you please?
To pray.
Captain Paul then believes in heaven?
And if I believe not in a supreme being, whose aid should I invoke when furious tempests rage?
Emmanuel, impatiently.
Well, and in this church?
I heard a priest proclaim the approaching marriage of Baron de Lectour with the noble Lady Margaret Doré.
And what does Captain Paul find astonishing in that?
Nothing, Count. But a fanciful compassion took possession of my heart. I thought, as every one, even his own mother, had forgotten that deserted orphan, for, I suppose, of her own free will, and not by force, your sister marries Baron de Lectour, I thought that I would cherish the poor boy, whose christening was tears, without a name, without a family. At least he should not starve, whilst his relations enjoyed the blessings of this world. In your position, and with your ambitious projects connected with the alliance of Monsieur de Lectour, those letters are well worth 100,000 livres, are they not, Count? And this sum will only make a trifling breach in the 500,000 composing your fortune, will it not?
But what security have I, sir, that those 100,000 livres—
Right, sir. Nor will I exchange those letters, but for an obligation in due form, in the name of young Hector de Lusignan.
As it was only on money matters we had need to treat, you might have spared yourself the trouble of relating that long story, and rather have sent me a confidential agent to settle this affair. The family Doré have always set aside, annually, for charitable purposes, double the sum which you require.
He goes near the table and writes. Enter Jasmin.
My lord.
I am at home to no one. Leave us.
Your sister, my lord.
Some other time.
She desires to speak with you immediately.
No ceremony, sir. I can call again.
No, Captain Paul, if you please. I would rather set our business at once. I will see my sister, but as it is unnecessary that she should see you, be good enough to retire to that closet. You will there find books to beguile your time.
Willingly, sir.
Enters closet. Emmanuel to Jasmin.
Admit my sister.
Exit Jasmin. Enter Margaret.
Come, Margaret. Tell me quickly what you want. I am busy.
There was a time, Emmanuel, when, after 2 months' absence, you would have at least embraced your sister.
There was. But since that time so many things have happened.
And what could happen between children of the same mother? What could separate blood from blood, the brother from the sister?
Margaret, you forget your disgrace.
Oh, cruel brother! You know I cannot implore my father. You know the sight of my mother inspires me with awe. I am speechless before her. And now my only earthly hope depends on you. I come to you, Emmanuel, not as a sister to her brother. Joy in her looks, smiles upon her lips. No, no, I come to you with tears, an humble suppliant before her judge, and with a single word you prostrate me.
And what do you want of me?
I wish to know whether the report is true.
What report?
That tomorrow evening.
What next?
Baron de Lectour?
Will be here, 'tis true.
Oh, heaven!
I was in hopes, having taken the precaution as he did to announce his arrival 2 months ago, you had time enough to be prepared.
Despite those threats, hope still remained. Criminals have been pardoned at the foot of the scaffold.
In a supplicating voice.
Emmanuel!
Well?
Oh, dost thou not understand me? If heaven had willed that I could spare thee a pang, as thou canst save me from misery, If thou hadst prayed to me as I now pray to thee, and by a single word my voice could save thee from despair, how would I pour forth blessings unto heaven in speaking that one word?
This rests not with me. An alliance, determined by my mother, and necessary to the honour of her family. My father too desires it.
My father desires it! Would to heaven he could desire something, poor old man, that I might die for him. An alliance determined by my mother! Oh! He who suggested that alliance could easily obtain her renunciation of it, necessary for the honour of our family. Thank heaven, that family is powerful enough, in name and fortune, to gain no lustre from a prince's suit. No, Emmanuel, no! You have bargained for me, is it not so? You have sold me for the sake of your ambition. Speak! You have bartered me for a decoration, a commission, and you believed that, as a child, I would obey. If I resisted, my loneliness and misfortunes could give you power to bend me to your will. You are mistaken, Emmanuel. In my misfortunes will I find that force to resist, even in my loneliness a power to oppose your purpose.
Then you are resolved to disobey your mother?
That night when, for the last time, I saw him whom my eyes may now behold again, a priest was waiting to unite us. The Sigun was at my feet. I refused to follow him, for I would not disobey my mother. But on that night I made an oath that if I could not be his wife, never would I be the wife of another. I have repeated it since on the head of my child, and now it is not only the vow of a loving woman, it is a mother's solemn oath. And heaven, I trust, will give me strength to keep it. Farewell, Emmanuel. Mayst thou be happy.
Exit Margaret. Emmanuel gazes at her as she exits.
Farewell, poor reed, who believest thyself an oak. Oh, when my mother commands, how wilt thou bend thy head, how wilt thou prostrate thyself at her feet?
Perceiving Paul at the door of the closet.
Ah, there you are, sir. Prepare your letters, and I will sign the obligation you demand.
Goes towards the table.
It is not necessary, Count.
Emmanuel, quickly.
How so?
I will give the 100,000 livres to your nephew, and I will provide a husband for your sister.
Emmanuel, violently.
But who are you then, sir, who dare thus play the master in my family?
Paul, going.
Who am I? I will tell you tomorrow, for this evening I shall know it.
Emmanuel, detaining him.
And will you give me your word of honour that I shall see you again tomorrow?
Paul, releasing himself.
You have my word.
Exit Paul. Emmanuel alone.
What I see most clear in all this mystery is that this man must either blow my brains out, or I will his.
End of Act 1. Act 2 of Paul Jones by Alexandre Dumas. Translated by William Berger. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Act 2. Scene 1. A chamber on the ground floor, at Louis Achard's, near the Chateau d'Auray. A door in the background, which, when open, shows at a distance the trees of a park. At the right hand, a window. On the left, a door communicating to another chamber. On the raising of the curtain, the Marchioness alone is sitting before a table, on the left side of the actor. An open Bible lies on the table, the Marchioness in deep reflection. Her large black veil surrounds her nearly entirely, and falls to the ground. Enter Achard, and perceiving the Marchioness, goes to her.
My lady.
Marchioness, raising her head.
Is it you, Achard? I have been waiting for you this half hour. Where have you been?
If my lady had gone 50 paces farther, she would have met me under the great oak, near the park gate.
You know I never go near it.
Perhaps you are in the wrong, madam. There is one in heaven who has a right to our joint prayers, and who, it may be, weeps at hearing only those of old Achard.
Who tells you that I do not pray alone? And why should you believe the dead demand that we be forever kneeling on their grave?
I only believe that if a particle of us survives underground, that something trembles with pleasure to hear the footsteps of those we loved whilst living.
But if that love was a guilty one?
Do you believe that death and blood have not atoned for it? Heaven were then too severe a judge.
Yes, heaven may pardon, for omnipotence is all kindness. But do you believe that if the world knew all, it would forgive as heaven will?
The world, that important word, is even pronounced by you. The world. It is to that idol, madam, your pride has sacrificed all. The feelings of a loving woman, a wife, a mother. For the world's sake you wear that mourning robe, beneath whose folds you hope to hide remorse. And you are right, for the world deems your remorse virtue.
You speak in the name of others, with a bitterness of heart that might lead to suppose that you, personally, have something to reproach me for. Achard, have I omitted any of the duties which I believe I am bound to fulfill towards you? The people who wait on you, by my orders, have they not borne towards you that respect and obedience which I have enjoined on them? You have only a word to say.
Pardon me, madam. It is only sadness, not a bitter complaint. It proceeds only from my lonely situation, from old age. You ought to know what bitter thoughts are weighing on your conscience. What are those tears with which your heart overflows? No, through a sentiment for which I am grateful, though I will not pry into its motives. You yourself have taken care that I want for nothing. You have not forgotten your promise for a single day, and sometimes, as unto the prophet of old, even an angel came as messenger.
Yes, I know that Margaret sometimes accompanies the servant who waits on you, and I have seen with pleasure that she supplies your wants.
And I, on my part, have fulfilled my duty, have I not? For 20 years have I lived far from men and every living thing, been banished from my cottage, so fearful have I been, that in sleepless indiscreet nights the wanderings of my poor mind might betray a secret that should never be disclosed.
Yes, the secret has been kept. But 'tis the greater reason now for me to fear to lose in one brief day the fruit of 20 years of still more gloom, more loneliness and terror than yours have been. Think what it is, for 20 years to be the guardian of a madman, who, whenever a spark of reason lights upon his brain, reproaches me with crime, and hourly repeats those words, those dreadful words, with which the angels at the judgment day will wake me from my grave.
And I also, madam, I have heard those words. I was here when he pronounced them and expired.
Such is the fate of the wife. My children, too, kept far from me, that they may not be near their father. My children, who only know me by the terror I inspire. My children, who, when I open my arms to them, fall at my feet and call me Madame. This is the mother's fate.
You speak only of those who knew you to be their mother.
Marchioness, trembling.
Achard.
Is it not true? Have you not trembled when, reflecting that there exists a man who one day will call on me to know that secret, and that I have no right to conceal aught from him? Nay, compose yourself, madam. At the age of 15 years, you know that boy wandered from the family in which he was brought up in Scotland, and from that period nothing more was heard of him. He must have forgotten the letter of his father. He must have lost the token by which he could identify himself. Or it may be that he no longer dwells among the living.
Cruel Achard! Little do you know what mysterious secrets, what strange contradictions are enclosed within a woman's heart. Cannot I rest unless my child be dead? Does it, at 25, become of such importance to his existence that he cannot live unless that secret be revealed? Achard, my old friend, could we not tell him that his mother joined his father in heaven, but on her deathbed left him as a legacy to her friend, the Marchioness Doré, who would prove a second mother to him?
Yes, you might tell him so. You, and I know you could speak it with a steady voice. You could look on him with a tearless eye and easy heart. I know it well. You could speak to him, and your first words would not be, "My child." Yet he is the son of a man who was beloved by you, so much beloved that for his sake you forgot the most sacred of all duties. Oh, you can conquer your own feelings. But should I behold him, I should throw myself into his arms and cry aloud, "Henry, my dear Henry."
But you, Achard, have nothing to conceal. 40 years of a spotless name are not tarnished by that single word, "my child." Your name is not Doré. Yours is not a title transmitted to you by noble ancestors, to be inherited by as noble descendants. Hear me, Achard. I came to tell you this. I came to say to you, have pity on me.
Faithful as I have been to the promises made to the Marchioness Doré, as faithful as I will be to those made to the Count de Morlaix, the day, the hour, his son comes to me with the token by which I shall know him, and asks me for his secret, he shall know all. The papers which prove his birth, you are aware, madam, he may claim only at your husband's death. That secret's hidden here.
Points to his heart.
No earthly power can force or hinder its disclosures. Those papers are in a recess of the wardrobe near my bed. The key is always with me. Therefore, naught but theft or murder can procure them.
The Marquis may outlive you. What then becomes of them?
The priest who assists me in my last moments will receive them under the seal of confession.
And I must live in agony and wretchedness until my death. Here stands a man, perhaps the only one in the world unmoved by tears, by prayers. A man who rejects my gold, and this stubborn rock crosses my way until a tempest buries me under its ruins. Achard, my secret is thine. Do what thou wilt with it. Thou art the master, I thy slave. Farewell.
Exit Marchioness. Achard, alone.
Go, cold-hearted woman, who knows no remorse, who fears not heaven. How dearly dost thou pay for the reputation of the most virtuous woman! Truly the world believes thee a saint, and who could dare say nay? Thy will be done. Thy eternal wisdom will direct all.
Enter Paul.
Well spoken, old man. There is more virtue in implying resignation than in misbelieving philosophy. Would I had that maxim less on my lips, and oftener in my hearts.
I beg your pardon, sir, but who are you?
For the present, a disciple of Plato. All mankind are my brothers, the world my country, and under the sun do I possess no other resting place than the one I have built up for myself.
What do you want of me?
I am on the lookout, 20 leagues from Brest, and about 200 paces from the Chateau Doré, for a cottage like that, and of an old man, possibly you.
And that old man's name is?
Louis Achard.
You are not mistaken. It is myself.
Paul, taking his hat off.
May the blessings of heaven light on thy grey hairs, for here is a letter, I suppose from my father, and it calls you an honest man.
Achard, much moved.
And that letter, contains it nothing?
Yes, something like a broken gold piece. You should have the other half.
Achard holds out his hand, takes the gold piece and the letter.
Yes, yes, it is. And more that astonishing resemblance. child! Oh, oh, heaven!
What moves you thus?
You are the portrait, I the living portrait of your father. And know you not, I loved, I cherished him more than my own heart's blood. So would I shed that blood for thee, if thou shouldst ever need it.
Embrace me then, old man. The chain of love is still unbroken between the grave and cradle. And whoever may have been my father, if, to be like him, with a clear conscience, dauntless courage, and a spirit that will never bend, is all you ask, then am I his living picture, and more so from my soul than from my face.
Ashar, gazing on him.
Yes, you are like your father. That same proud face, that same fire in his looks. But why did I not see thee sooner, young man? Many dark hours hadst thou made cheerful to me.
Why? Because that letter bade me find thee out when I became 25. It is but lately I have reached that age, within this very hour only.
Already? 25 already? It seems to me but yesterday that you were born here in this cottage. In this very room you first beheld the light.
And here I lived till I was 4 years old. Is it not so?
Yes.
Let me recall my memory. I do recollect a chamber, as a dream, like this same one. Is there not a bed with green curtains?
Yes.
An ivory crucifix above its head?
Yes.
The wardrobe opposite, where there were some books, amongst others a large Bible with engravings.
Here it is, the same Bible.
Yes, yes, the same. Then a window from which you could distinguish the sea. An island.
The island of Noirmoutier.
Paul, running to the chamber.
Ah!
Ashar in the act of following him.
No, no, leave me for a moment. I would be alone.
Exit into chamber. Ashar alone.
Brave, noble youth, I thank thee, heaven, I thank thee.
Paul returning.
Yes, it was the same room. After all, why hide my emotions? Look at me, old man. I have seen the tempest rage on the wild ocean, tossed my ship about like a feather ball. I saw men perish at my side, cut away like ears of corn by a scythe. I heard the dying groans of those who the day before had feasted with me. I caught their dying breath on a deck slippery with blood, amid shot and cannon balls. All this have I seen, old man, unmoved, untouched. But this room, whose memory lives in me so sacredly, where a father caressed me, whom I shall never see again, a mother, who perhaps does not wish to behold me. See, old man, this chamber is precious, is sacred to me as a cradle, as a tomb. Oh, I must weep, or I shall choke.
Yes, you are right, a cradle and a tomb. For here wast thou born, here didst thou receive the last farewell of thy father.
Then he is dead, and my forebodings did not deceive me.
He is dead.
When? How?
You shall hear all.
A minute. Let me breathe first.
Opens the window.
What beauty in a fine autumnal evening, the setting sun reposing in the sea. Glorious spectacle, silent as the deity, grand as eternity. A man who often admired such a spectacle could not fear death. My father died like a man of courage, did he not?
He did.
And now do I recollect him, my poor father, though I was only 4 years old when I saw him for the last time.
He was a handsome young man, of your age.
And his name?
Count de Morlaix.
A noble name amongst the names in Brittany. And my mother?
Your mother, the Marchioness Doré.
Paul violently.
What sayest thou?
The truth.
Oh, heaven! Then Emmanuel is my brother, Margaret my sister.
Do you know them already?
Thou wert in the right, old man. Eternal wisdom directs whate'er it wills. It can do so, and what it does is long before ordained in its wisdom.
He falls down in a chair and places his head in his hands.
Your father and the Marchioness were betrothed to each other in early youth. I do not know what family hatred divided the good understanding between their parents. They were separated. Count de Morlaix sailed for San Domingo, where his father owned large estates. I followed him. I was the son of his nurse. I was educated with him. He called me brother, and I alone recollected the distance which his rank had placed between us.
Noble man!
After 2 years' residence in the island, he returned to France, and found his beloved wedded to another. But the Marquis, called away to Paris to attend his post near the King, Louis XV., had been obliged to leave his young wife, then too ill to follow him, in the Château d'Oré, whose turrets you perceive hence.
Paul slowly raises his head and makes a sign that he sees them.
During that journey my father died, and left me this cottage, with the adjoining grounds. I took possession of them.
Go on.
One night, 25 years ago, I heard a knocking at my door. I opened it. Your father entered, bearing in his arms a woman veiled. "Louis," said he, "thou canst do more than save my life and honour. Save the life and honour of my beloved. Hasten to the nearest town, and within an hour return with a physician." I obeyed. In a short time your father departed, again carrying in his arms, and always veiled, the mysterious female who that night became your mother.
And how did you know that woman was the Marchioness d'Oré?
I offered your father to keep you with me. He consented. From time to time he came to pass a few hours with you.
Alone?
Always. But if you were walking in the park and the Marchioness met you, she would call you to her and embrace you, as we do a stranger's child whose beauty we take pleasure in beholding. 4 years passed away in this manner. Again your father visited me, but far more sad and gloomy than before. "Louis," said he, "to-morrow at daybreak I shall fight a duel with the Marquis d'Oré for life or death. 'Tis so arranged, and you, my only second, give me shelter for the night, and provide me with writing materials." I did so. He then sat down near this table, upon that very chair on which you sit.
Paul rises.
And there remained till morning without sleeping. At break of day he entered my apartment. I had risen. You were still sleeping in your cradle.
Go on.
Your father looked on you mournfully. "If I fall," said he, "to save this child from unforeseen misfortune, deliver him with this letter to Field, my valet de chambre. He will take him to his own country, to Scotland, and confide him to trusty hands. When 25 years old, that child, if he lives, will call on you with the other half of this gold coin. He will demand from you the secret of his birth. You will tell him all. As for those papers which prove his birth, you will not deliver them until the Marquis be dead. Now," said he, "let us go." He went to your cradle, and a tear moistened his manly cheek.
Go on.
That tear dropped on your face. You threw your little arms round his neck, saying, "Farewell, father."
I have often thought that childhood had a foreboding of the future. Childhood and old age are near to heaven.
The meeting was in a lane of the park, about 100 paces hence. On arrival we found the Marquis there. Near him, and on a bench, loaded pistols. The parties saluted without exchanging a word. The Marquis showed the pistols to your father. Each took one. They counted 30 paces between them, then walked towards each other. It was a terrible moment, believe me, when I saw the ground gradually lessen between those two men. At 10 paces distance, the Marquis stopped and fired. I looked at your father. Not a muscle of his face was changed. He continued approaching the Marquis, and putting his pistol to his heart.
He did not kill him?
Your life, said he, is in my power. I might take it, but live, that you may pardon me, as I forgive you. With these words he fell dead. The Marquis's ball had pierced his heart.
My father! My father! And he lives, that man, does he not, Achcard? Let us go to him. Tell him this is his son, you hear, his son. You must fight him.
Heaven has revenged you already. That man is insane.
True, I forgot.
And in his madness this bloody scene is always present to his eyes. 20 times a day does he repeat the dying words of your father.
And this, then, is the reason why the Marchioness never quits him for an instant?
And for this reason, under the pretext that he refuses to see his children, she never lets Emmanuel and Margaret come near him.
Poor sister! And now her mother would make a new victim, in forcing her to marry Baron de Lectour against her will.
Yes, but that miserable Lectour takes his wife to Paris, and her brother gets a regiment of horse. The Marchioness no longer fears the presence of her children. Her secret, then, is only confined to her and 2 old men, who may die tomorrow, this night, and the Dowager Marchioness de Ray, a pattern of a mother's love, of connubial virtue, survives, surrounded by the respect, the admiration of the world.
Oh, dost thou believe that my mother—
I beg your pardon. True, I do not believe it. I am in the wrong. Forget all I said. Judge for yourself. Must I add that the last will of your father was faithfully executed? Field came. The very same day he left with you. 21 years have elapsed, and since that hour not a day has passed that I have not prayed to heaven on the grave of his father to bless that child. Heaven has listened to my prayers. You are here. Your father revives in you. I see him again. I speak to him. I am comforted.
Paul, looking through the window.
Silence. Someone comes this way.
Most likely a servant from the castle.
Margaret accompanies him. Margaret, my sister. Leave me alone with that child, Achard. I would speak to her.
Recollect that your secret is that of your mother.
Be easy. I will only speak to her of her own.
Exit Achard in the next room. Paul alone.
Poor girl! That interest I felt for thee yesterday when I saw thee was then a brother's love. She comes.
Enter Margaret and La Feuille.
That will do, La Feuille. Put that basket there, and wait for me at the park gate.
Exit La Feuille.
I beg your pardon, sir. I thought Achard was at home.
He is in the next room.
Margaret, going towards it.
I thank you, sir.
Exit Margaret. Paul alone.
Oh, poor lonely Paul! Why shall I not throw my arms around her neck? Why not say to her, Margaret, no woman ever loved me with a woman's love. Love me with a sister's love, for I am thy mother's son. Oh, mother, when you deprived me of yours, you also deprived me of the love of that angel. May Heaven, in his goodness, render you in eternity that happiness, of which you have deprived yourself, of which you have deprived us all.
Re-enter Margaret. Margaret, in the door which separates the 2 chambers.
Goodbye, Achard. I wanted very much to see you, for who knows when I can do so again.
in the act of going out of the centre door.
Margaret!
She turns round, astonished, but makes a second motion to go.
Margaret! Don't you hear me? I call you.
True, you have pronounced my name, sir. But I could not suppose, not knowing you.
But I know you, I do. I know your distress. I know there is no heart to whom you could confide your grief, no arm that would support you.
You forget our Father in heaven, sir.
No. And if, far from forgetting him, I considered myself as his messenger, if I said to you, Margaret, I am your friend, your most devoted friend.
I would ask of you, sir, where are your proofs of friendship, of devotion?
And if I gave you one?
Margaret, with hope.
Oh, then.
You wear a bracelet on your left arm.
Who told you so?
That bracelet shuts with a lock, whose key is hidden by a ring.
Oh, heaven!
There exists a man, to whom you made oath, in a night of parting and despair, that, long as that ring should not be restored to you...
I would not accept of any suitor. And next!
Do you know this ring?
Oh, have pity on me! He is dead!
Margaret, he lives. Loves you still.
He lives, he loves me. And how does that ring happen to come in your possession?
Banished, proscribed. He thought it was his duty to restore you to liberty, that you might bestow your heart and hand elsewhere.
When a woman has sacrificed to a man, what I have sacrificed to him, he is the only man she can ever love, the only one to whom she can ever belong, to him alone or heaven.
Margaret, you are an angel.
Tell me, you saw him then?
It was I who had orders to bear him to Cayenne. During our passage he told me all, and I perceived that I had been made an instrument of vengeance, not of justice. Then thought I that Providence had selected me to be the judge of judges. Lusignan is banished, but he is free. I left him at New York, waiting the success of the petition which his friends have already laid before the king.
And do you believe he will be pardoned?
I have obtained more than that.
Let me kiss your hands.
Come to my arms, Margaret. You are a saint.
You do not then despise me?
Margaret, had I a sister, I would pray to heaven that she might be like you.
You would have an unfortunate sister.
Perhaps.
Oh, but you do not know.
What?
Monsieur de Lectoure must have arrived by this time.
I know it.
This evening the contract is to be signed.
And will you sign it?
They will force me.
Have you not the courage to refuse?
I feel only courage to die.
Poor child.
Whom shall I implore? To whom apply? My brother! Heaven knows I pardon him. He does not understand me. My mother, oh, sir, you do not know her. A woman of stern virtue, of an iron heart. When she says, "It is my will," nothing remains but to weep and to obey. My father, he is insane. He lost his reason, and with it all remembrance of a parent's love. For 10 years my eyes have not beheld my father. For 10 years I have not kissed his trembling hands, his silver hair. He does not know whether he has a child, a daughter. He would not know me again, and should he take pity on me, my mother would place a pen in his hand and bid him sign, and he would sign, the poor, the weak old man, and Margaret be a condemned victim.
Margaret, I will be present at that signature.
And who will introduce you into the castle?
I have the means to do so.
Oh, my brother is brave, stubborn. His ambition finds an opening by my marriage. Oh, sir, sir!
Your brother is as sacred to me as you yourself. Fear not.
You make me shudder.
And how do you mean to act toward Lectoure?
Ask an interview of him.
And then?
Tell him all.
Paul, kneeling down.
Let me adore you.
Sir.
Oh, as a sister.
Oh, sir, you are good. You have a noble heart, and heaven has sent you to my assistance.
Believe it.
Consequently, this evening.
Fear nothing. Only try to let me know, although it be but by a sign, how you have succeeded with Lectoure.
Farewell.
Farewell.
Margaret, shaking his hand.
Farewell, you, whom I do not know by what name to address.
Call me brother.
Farewell, brother.
Farewell, sister. This is the first time I am addressed by that sweet name. May heaven reward thee, young girl.
Exit Margaret. Paul calling out.
Achard!
Enter Ashar.
Now, to my father's grave.
Exeunt. End of Act 2. Act 3 of Paul Jones by Alexandre Dumas. Translated by William Berger. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Act 3, Scene 1. Same scenery as in the first act. The chandeliers are lighted on the chimney. Emmanuel and Baron de Lectoure.
Permit me, my dear Baron, to welcome you to the castle of my ancestors, built in the time of Philip Augustus.
And venerable enough, does it look? Like one of those old feudal strongholds of the days of ancient chivalry.
And so it was, and you see in me their last representative, your most obedient and humble servant to command, Emmanuel Doré.
And the descendant of a most noble, old, respectable family.
Yes, but I do not as yet call myself old enough to wish to spend my life in this very old and respectable castle, and I hope, Baron, you have not forgotten me.
Certainly not. I was in hope of presenting you of your commission, as colonel of the regiment of dragoons of Her Majesty. I knew there was a vacancy. I had hopes to succeed for you, when I was informed that the regiment had been given to somebody at the request of another, some mysterious admiral, something of a freebooter or corsair, whom His Majesty has taken a fancy to, for having beaten the English at Whitehaven, where he conquered a fort and took one of their ships on the coast of Ireland. For these exploits His Majesty has invested him with the insignia of the Order of Military Merit, and presented him with a gold-mounted sword, as if that man had been a nobleman. Well, nothing to be done that way. We must try something else.
And the decoration promised for me, the Cross of St. Louis?
Ah, nothing easier. I have the minister's word.
Well, you are aware how anxious I am to be noticed, to obtain some post or other suitable to my ancient name, my birth.
Perfectly.
And how did you get rid of all your numerous engagements?
By telling the truth. I have publicly announced my marriage.
Bold enough indeed. Above all, if you confessed that you have taken a wife in the wilds of our province.
I did confess it.
Then they did pity you, instead of being angry with you, I'm sure.
Ah, you understand. Our ladies at court know of no other son than that of Paris and Versailles. The remainder of France is all Greenland, Lapland, Nova Zambia, terra incognita to them. And they expect to see me present them with some strange animal, some unknown species, hands of an ogre, feet of gigantic shape. But they are mistaken, are they not, Emmanuel? You told me that, on the contrary, your sister—
You will see her.
Then that poor Madame de Chaulnes will be sadly disappointed.
Turning around.
What is the matter?
Enter Jasmin.
Miss Margaret Doré requests the Baron de Lectoure to favour her with the honour of a private interview.
Me? With the greatest pleasure.
No, you are mistaken, Jasmin. You must be mistaken.
I have the honour to assure you, my lord, that I have faithfully repeated my orders.
Impossible. Baron, you must decline.
By no means, Mr. Bluebeard of a brother. Jasmin, tell that fair lady, my betrothed, that I am at her command, on my feet, on my knees, just as she pleases. And you, Count, I hope you have confidence in me to permit that tete-a-tete?
Ridiculous.
By no means. Nothing more convenient. I am no crowned head, not I, to marry a lady at the sight of her portrait, or by procuration. I am anxious to see her in propria persona, or openly. Entre nous, my dear Count, is there anything deformed, or—
No, no, she is pretty as an angel.
Well then, what does all this signify? Come, must I call my guard?
Exit Emmanuel.
Jasmin, tell the lady I await her orders.
Exit Jasmin. Enter Margaret.
I beg your pardon, Miss Dore. It would have been my duty to solicit the favour you are pleased to bestow on me. The only fear of being thought indiscreet.
I am much obliged to you, Baron, for that delicacy, and it only increases the confidence I have in you.
Whatever it may be, I feel myself much honoured by it, and I will endeavour to prove myself worthy of your good opinion.
Aside.
Upon my soul, Emmanuel's in the right. She is a charming creature.
What I have to tell you, Baron, I beg your pardon, but—
Faltering and weak, looks for a chair to support herself.
Good heaven! It is then something very difficult, or, without my being aware of it, do I look so imposing?
He takes her hand.
Speak, but not only an angelic figure. Charming hands, true hands, à la royale.
Margaret, taking her hand back.
I hope, sir, this is the language of mere gallantry.
No, upon my honour, the plain truth.
And even should you really believe all you say, those motives alone cannot be of such a value in your eyes that you should set so great a price.
Indeed, upon my honour.
I hope you consider marriage as a most solemn engagement.
That might be, if I married a dowager, per example.
Well, sir, I beg your pardon, if I was mistaken, but I have thought sometimes that you had formed some idea that there existed a reciprocity of sentiments in the union proposed between us.
Never, no, never. Since I have seen you, particularly, I have no hopes to be worthy of you. How shall I express myself? Of your love. But my name, my rank, render me worthy. If not of your heart, at least of your hand.
And how, sir, distinguish you the one from the other?
Why, 3/4 of all marriages are managed in that way. The man because he wants a wife, the woman because she wants a husband. It is a change of position, a social arrangement, nothing more. And what has sentiment, what has love to do with all this?
I beg your pardon. Perhaps I do not express myself properly. A young maiden's bashfulness in speaking on such a subject.
By no means. Clarissa Harlowe could not express herself better. It is clear as daylight. I understand perfectly well.
And if, sir, consulting my heart, my feelings, I foresaw the impossibility that I should ever love.
Then you should not tell me so.
And why?
Why? Because, upon my honour, you are too candid, too naive.
And if it was not candour which guides me, if it was delicacy, uprightness, if I added, sir, and may the shame of that confession fall on those who forced me to make it, that I have loved, that I love still.
Some cousin, some petit cousin, is it not? That pest we meet with everywhere, those baubles playing with mississes' cats, or ladies' lapdogs. But what of that? Do we not know those famous attachments? There is not a boarding school miss who, after her vacations, returns to school without one of those powerful children's passions in her heart.
Unfortunately for me, I am no longer a boarding school miss, sir, and although yet young, it is a long time since the days of children's plays and infant attachments have passed by. When I speak to the man who does me the honour to ask for my hand, when I speak to that man of my love for another, he ought to believe me if I say it is a serious, profound, eternal love, one of those loves deeply and forever rooted in the heart, a love for life, for eternity.
The devil! But this is quite a pastoral romance. Then let me see. Is the young man comme il faut, such a one as may be received into society?
Oh, the best of human beings, the most devoted.
Leave me the perfections of the heart alone. He is a pattern of all earthly accomplishments, of course. I ask you, what family? Is he a nobleman? If a woman may, well, if a woman may be seen publicly with him, you understand me, without making her husband ridiculous.
His father, who died when he was quite a child, was a magistrate at the Court of Appeals at Rennes.
Law, nobility, persons of the long robe. I wish he had been anything else. But, after all, everybody is not so lucky as the Duc de Longueville, who picks out the lovers for his wife. I beg your pardon, but we can manage that. For the sake of appearances, he must not show himself for the first 6 months. His friends must procure some post at court for him. He must be introduced to you by a friend of both parties. That's all. And then all will be perfectly regular.
I do not understand you, sir.
What I tell you is plain enough. However, you have your engagements, your liaisons. I, for my part, have my own too. Then there is no reason why we should not marry, form a union so convenient in all respects, and if once wedded, well, we must make our life as tolerable and comfortable as possible between us.
Margaret, retreating.
I beg your pardon, sir. I have been very imprudent, perhaps very guilty, but I have not deserved such insult. Oh, I blush more for your sake than for mine. Yes, sir, now I understand you. A love with all ceremonies in the eyes of the world, and another, private, secret one, the mask of virtue, but the ignominy of vice. And is it to me, to the daughter of the Marchioness Doré, you dare propose that disgraceful bargain? You make those vile, infamous proposals. Oh, you must take me for a very miserable, despicable creature.
Falls down on the chair and hides her face in her hands. Lectour, calling.
Emmanuel!
Enter Emmanuel.
My dear, your sister is pleased to have a fit. Pray pay attention to these things, lest they turn to a chronic disease. Madame de Moulins died of it. There, take my flacon, let her inhale it.
Exit Lectour by centre door.
Margaret! Margaret! Well, what now? Weeping. Come, compose yourself. Several guests have arrived already. Also the notary. My father is coming down.
My father? Are you sure, my father?
Of course. His presence is absolutely necessary.
Well then, he is my soul, my last, my only hope. May heaven lend me fortitude and courage.
Exit Margaret, by the door on the left hand.
Poor sister. I believe thou wouldst do better to ask reason of him. There comes Lectour, in conversation with Monsieur de Nozay.
Enter de Nozay and Lectour.
But, do you know, that's charming, absolutely bon ton. I also have ditches, marshes, ponds, and ducks. I'll ask my steward where all these things lie. Only think, Emmanuel, there's that gentleman telling me of something very curious. Do you catch many ducks that way?
Prodigiously.
Only think, that gentleman goes in the water up to his neck. And about what period of the year?
Why, in the winter, in December and January.
Puts a hollow pumpkin on his head, and sticks himself amongst the reeds. This produces such a change in him, that the ducks don't know him, and come within finger's reach of him, is it not?
as nigh as we are to each other.
And the gentleman kills them to his heart's content.
By dozens.
That must be delightful to your lady, if she is fond of ducks.
They're her delight.
What an interesting lady your wife must be.
De Nozay, bowing.
Sir!
I assure you, when I return to Versailles, I will report that, at the first levee at court, and I am sure his Majesty will try your experiment in the pond in the park.
Emmanuel, half loud to him.
Excuse me, Baron, but they are country neighbours we are to invite to our present solemnity.
How so? You would have committed murder to deprive me of that gentleman's story. He makes part of my future wife's dowry. I would have been distracted not to have made his valuable acquaintance.
Enter La Feuille announcing,
Monsieur de la Jarre.
Lecture to Monsieur de Nozay.
Also a sportsman?
Oh no, a great traveller.
Enter de Jarry, wears a fur coat. Exit La Feuille.
My dear de la Jarrie, you are buried in furs. Upon my honour, you look like the Tsar of Muscovy.
Why, Count, you know when one arrives from Naples.
Ah, the gentleman has arrived from Naples?
Direct, and I find it so devilish cold here.
Did you see Mount Vesuvius?
See it, to be sure, that is to say, at a distance. But that is not the greatest curiosity in Naples. A smoking mountain. My chimney does the same. And then, Madame de la Jarrie is so afraid of eruptions.
You visited the dog's grotto, I presume?
And why should I? To see an animal catching the vapors. Throw a poisoned cake to the first dog, and you will have the same sight. Then Madame de la Jarrie is so very fond of dogs that she could not look at such a spectacle without tears.
I trust at least that such a savant as you are has been to see the Solfatara.
I never went near it. Besides, I can easily figure to myself such a place. 3 or 4 acres of brimstone, that's all, producing nothing but matches. And then Madame de la Jarrie cannot bear the smell of brimstone.
Emmanuel, aside to Lecture.
Well, and what say you of that genius?
Lecture, the same.
I don't know, but is it because I heard the other stories first? Decidedly, the first story is the best.
Enter La Feuille announcing,
Mr. Paul.
Emmanuel turning around.
Who?
Also a country neighbour?
No, quite different. How does that man dare to come here just now?
I understand. Some low-born fellow, some plebeian, is it not so? Poet, painter, musician, something like it. Well, I assure you, Emmanuel, that species is getting quite to be in vogue. That damned philosophy upsets all. An artist now associates with our great men, hardly bows to them, remains seated when others rise. They talk, they joke, they criticize together. A bad taste, but just now very fashionable.
You are mistaken, Lecture. He is neither one nor the other. It is a man to whom I must speak alone.
Taking de la Jarrie by the arm.
Walk into the next room with me, sir. I am anxious to show you some handsome paintings. The islands of Ischia, Capri, Nisida.
Oh, I have seen all from the windows of our hotel, but I did not visit them. Madame de la Jarrie is so afraid of seasickness.
Lecture, taking de Nozay's arm.
And you say, sir, one need only put his head in a pumpkin?
Nothing more. Only bore some holes in it for your eyes and your mouth.
Exeunt all 4 through the door on the right hand. The centre door opens. Paul appears in the background. Margaret opening the door of the closet. Paul hastily meeting her.
I was looking for you. Well?
I told him all.
And?
In 10 minutes the contract is to be signed.
I thought so. The wretch.
And what shall I do now?
Have courage, Margaret.
Courage. Oh, I am undone.
Paul giving a paper to her.
This will cheer you.
And what are the contents of this paper?
The name of the village where you will meet with your son, and the address of his nurse.
Oh, you are an angel of consolation.
Silence. Whatever may happen, you will find me at Achard's.
Enough.
Re-enters the closet. Enter Emmanuel by the door on the right hand.
I expected you some other time, sir, and before less numerous company.
It appears we are alone now.
Yes, but in a few minutes a party will be here.
Many things may be expressed in a few words.
You are right, but it needs a man who has but a few minutes to spare to understand them.
I am at your command.
Enter Lectour from the door at the right hand, advances in the background and listens, without being perceived by Emmanuel and Paul.
You spoke to me of certain letters.
True.
You fixed a certain price on those letters.
Also true.
Well, are you ready to deliver them up for that price?
Emmanuel, delay the signature on that contract till tomorrow, and grant me an interview this night.
It cannot be postponed. The interview you ask is of no use, for here we are. Are you ready?
Hear me.
Yes or no?
2 words.
Yes or no?
Paul coldly.
No.
At what hour tomorrow, sir, would you be pleased to take a short walk with me?
I am sorry, Count, I cannot accept your offer.
Then, sir, you do not understand me.
On the contrary, perfectly well.
That walk means nothing else.
Then a duel.
And you refuse?
I cannot fight you, Emmanuel.
You cannot fight me.
Upon my honor, I cannot.
You say you cannot fight me.
Lectour bursts out laughing. Paul turning around.
No, but I can fight that gentleman, that infamous, miserable wretch.
What do you mean?
Paul to Lectour.
You understand me, don't you?
Lectour coldly.
Yes. Only you forgot, sir, that a gentleman requires no insult in order to provoke him to fight.
Recollect, sir, that you may choose your time, the place, and weapons.
Emmanuel will arrange all these things with your second that regard me in this way.
And I hope, sir, you will conceive that for me our meeting is only postponed.
Silence. Somebody comes.
And you remain here?
I remain here.
Here.
Here, or in that closet, if you prefer it.
Exit Paul in the closet.
Jasmin?
Enter Jasmin.
Request the gentleman to come in.
Emmanuel and Lectour on the left. Enter La Jarrie, de Nozay, a notary, on the right. The latter places the contract on the table. Some other gentlemen as guests. La Feuille announcing.
My lady, the Marchioness Doré.
Enter Marchioness by the centre door.
I am much obliged to you, gentlemen, for the honour you do me in witnessing the betrothal of my daughter with Baron de Lectour. I have also requested the presence of the Marquis, my husband, although unwell and suffering, to assist on this family festival, that he may at least render you his thanks by his presence, if not by words. You are aware of his melancholy disease. You will not, then, be astonished if some incoherent words—
Yes, madame. We know the misfortune under which he labours, and we can only express our admiration of that devoted lady who for 20 years has borne the burden of more than her share of that misfortune.
Emmanuel kissing his mother's hand.
You see, madam, every one adores you.
Marchioness, half loud.
Where is Margaret?
Emmanuel, the same.
She was here just now.
Let her be called.
La Feuille announcing.
My Lord Marquis Doré.
Enter the Marquis Doré, full court dress decorated with the cross of St. Louis. The Marquis is supported by 2 servants. He stops at the door and looks with astonishment and a distracted air around him, then advances, sits in an armchair in the middle of the salon near the table, sighs, and bends his head down on his bosom. Exit Emmanuel.
Shall I read the contract?
It is unnecessary. The parties are acquainted with its contents. Offer the pen, sir, if you please.
De Nozay and La Jarrie sign as witnesses. The first then turns to the left, the other retakes his seat. Enter Emmanuel and Margaret. Emmanuel, conducting Margaret.
Here is my sister.
Margaret salutes the guests, then turns to her mother.
Madam.
Marchioness looks on her sternly.
It is your turn, my son.
Emmanuel signs.
Yours now, Baron.
Lectour signs, presents the pen to her, and sits down next to La Jarrie. The Marchioness signs now.
Yours now, my daughter.
Margaret, advancing.
Madam.
Marchioness reaches her the pen over the head of the Marquis.
Sign.
Margaret advances wavering, stretches her hand out to take hold of the pen.
No, no, never! I cannot!
Throwing herself at the feet of the Marquis.
Oh, my father! Father, have pity on me!
Marchioness, bending down, half loud.
Are you mad?
My father!
Marquis, raising his head.
Who calls me? Whose voice do I hear? What are you doing at my feet, my child? What do you want? What do you ask of me?
Margaret!
Madam, you will not hear me. Then let me implore my father's mercy, unless you prefer,
Pointing to the notary.
that I should invoke the law.
Marchioness, with a forced smile.
Come, gentlemen, a family scene is to be acted, and those things, no doubt very pathetic to parents, are generally very tiresome to strangers. Gentlemen, please walk into the next rooms. My son, do the honours. Baron, I beg your pardon.
Certainly, madame.
Turns round to La Jarrie.
You say, then, that Madame de la Jarrie is horribly afraid of the sea?
So much so that she nearly died in crossing the lake the other day.
Exeunt omnes. Marchioness, when all are gone, shuts the door violently and sits down hastily on the left-hand side of Margaret.
Now, as there is no one present except those who have a right to command you, sign, or leave the house.
Oh, have pity on me, madam.
Marchioness takes her arm. She clings to her father.
My father, spare me, spare me. No, no, I have not seen my father for 10 years. You shall not tear me from him, till he knows me again, till he throws his arms round his child. My father, it is your daughter.
Marquis, trying to recollect.
What sweet voice is that? Who is that child who calls me father?
Marchioness throws herself between the Marquis and Margaret.
It is a voice which disobeys her parents. A rebel child.
Father, look at me. Save me, defend me. I am Margaret.
Margaret. I had a child by that name.
It is I, your daughter.
Only those who obey us are our children. Obey, then only call yourself our daughter.
Oh, father, I will obey you, but you will not command my unhappiness. You will not bid me go and remain wretched forever. You will not drive me to despair.
Marquis, embracing her.
Come, come to my arms. Oh, how delighted I feel, and now, oh, it seems as if I remember.
Sir!
Marquis, raising his head.
Beware, madam, beware. Did I not tell you I begin to recollect? Speak, speak, my child, what ails thee?
Oh, I am very miserable.
Everybody, then, is unfortunate in this house, in distress. Grey hair and brown, children and old men. Ah, I also.
He falls down in his armchair.
Am most wretched.
Marchioness, who has gone to the right hand of the Marquis.
Marquis, return to your chamber. It is absolutely necessary.
Yea, to remain alone with you again, face to face. That will do, madam, when I am mad.
Yes, father, you are right. My mother has devoted herself long enough to watch, to nurse you. It is my turn now. Your daughter's, father. Let me remain near you. Let me be your guard day and night.
Poor girl, wouldst thou have the courage, the strength?
Oh, yes, father. As truly as I am your child, I will.
And why did I not see my daughter for 10 long years?
They told me that you would not see me, that you did not love me.
Marquis, taking her head between his hands.
They told you I would not look at thy sweet face? They told you so? They told you a condemned wretch would not behold his deliverer? And who said that a father would not see his daughter? Who dared to say to thee, thy father loves thee not?
I.
You are then the demon, whose mission is to cheat me in all my affections. You then must prove the source of all my misfortunes. And now you wish to destroy, to break the heart of the father as you broke that of the husband?
He rises.
You are talking idly, sir.
No, madam. Rather say I am placed between an angel who would restore me to reason, and a demon who would drive me mad again. No, I am no longer insane. Must I give you proof of it, madam? Must I relate a story of letters, crime, adultery, of that horrid duel?
Marchioness takes him violently by the arms.
You must be more abandoned by heaven than ever, to breathe those things to ears which should not hear such words. Blush, sir. Look at her, and now say, if you dare, you are not mad.
Right, oh, you are right.
Falls back in the chair.
Thy mother is in the right. I am mad. Do not believe my words. Believe hers only. Thy mother's. Oh, she is all devotedness, all virtue. She passes no sleepless nights. Remorse does not disturb her pillow. What does she want of thee?
My misery, my eternal wretchedness.
And what can I do to save thee from misfortune? I, a poor old distracted man. I, who always see the blood streaming from a wound, see the grave open, the dead rise, and speak to me.
Oh, you can save me, you alone. Say one single word. They want to marry me, force me to marry. Oh, hear me, a man I do not love, I can never love. Father, hear me, to a wretch, an infamous man. And they conducted you hither, you, my father, to sign that contract. There, on that table it lies.
Marquis takes up the contract.
Without consulting me, without asking my consent. Do they take me already for a dead man? Do they fear me less than a ghost? That marriage, sayest thou, my child, will render thee unhappy?
Forever, forever.
Then I forbid it.
But I, sir, have engaged my word, given my consent, mine and yours.
No, that marriage shall not take place.
Rises.
Too horrible are the miseries of a union where the wife cannot love her husband. It leads to madness. I speak not of myself, my child. No, not of myself. Your mother always loved me faithfully. What makes me mad is quite different. That contract.
Tries to take it. Marchioness prevents him.
What makes me mad? Me? It is a grave. It opens. See, the spectre rises from its coffin. See, it approaches, his ghost. It speaks to me. Hear his groans.
Marchioness repeats in his ear the dying words of Morlaix.
Your life is in my power. I might take it.
Marquis, his madness returns, increases.
Dost thou hear? Dost thou hear?
Marchioness continues as above.
But I would have you live, so you may pardon me, as I forgive you.
Marquis sinks exhausted in his armchair.
Oh, pity, Morlaix, have pity on me.
Father!
Marchioness with a triumphant look.
You see, your father's mad.
Oh no! My voice, my love, my tears will bring him back to reason.
Try then.
Father!
Sir.
Marquis, trembling.
Oh, oh!
Father!
Marchioness to the Marquis.
Take that pen. Sign. Sign, I say. You must. I command you.
She places the Marquis's hand upon the contract, after having placed the pen in his hand. Marquis, obeying like a machine, signs part of his name, trembling. Margaret falls down fainting.
Then I'm lost!
Enter Paul from the closet.
Marchioness Doré.
Who calls me?
Margaret rises. Enter Emmanuel and Lecture from the centre door, going towards Paul.
Sir.
Sir.
Paul orders them back with his looks.
Stand back, I say.
I want satisfaction of you.
That is understood. Marchioness Doré, I must instantly speak with you, this very moment.
Marchioness turns to the right, looks at him frightened.
Is it a spectre?
Marquis rises, frightened in delirium, his voice gradually sinks to agony.
I know that voice.
Seeing Paul.
I know that face.
Goes towards Paul.
Morlaix, Morlaix.
Completely insane, repeating the last words of Morlaix.
Your life is in my power, sir. I would have you live, that you may pardon me, as I forgive you.
Sinks dying in the armchair. Emmanuel supports him. Margaret rushes towards her father.
My father!
Enter Lafeuille, in haste, to the left of the Marchioness.
My lady, Ashard asks for the physician and the priest. He is dying.
Look here. Tell him your master stands in need of both.
End of Act 3. Act 4 of Paul Jones by Alexandre Dumas, translated by William Berger. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Act 4, Scene 1. Achard's 2 rooms, separated by a partition. In the first, on the left, the entrance door in the back. A window on the left side, covered by a large curtain. In the middle, on the right, the door communicating between the 2 rooms. In the second room, a bed. In the back part, on the right-hand side, surrounded by green curtains. An ivory crucifix above the bolster of the bed. A table near the bedstead. Close to the bolster, on it, a lighted candle, and the Bible on a small desk. On the same side, a window, a large armchair. Opposite, on the left side of the door, a wardrobe. Night. Achard in an armchair, Lafeuille by his side.
Do you wish for anything else, Mr. Achard?
Nothing.
Shall I send someone to attend you?
A priest.
There is none, you know, within 2 leagues, except our chaplain in the chateau.
Then leave me alone. I thank you.
Goodbye, Mr. Achard.
Farewell.
Exit Lafeuille. Achard alone.
The priest and the physician are attending the Marquis. So heaven calls us before its throne on the same day, that we may answer for our sins together. Heaven is just, but where is man's justice? to let me die without help, without comfort. Could not a share fall to my lot? He, who fears death, why does he not keep the physician and send me the priest? I, who am weary of this life. But a priest, a priest! He would have heard my confession. I would have delivered those papers to him, and the Marchioness. Oh, that woman renders my death as solitary and desperate as she has made my life. Oh, for a few words of prayer, of peace in my last hour. A voice of comfort would have made the flight of my soul from this world to another cheering.
Throws his head back.
Heaven wills it not. Let me resign myself. The will of heaven be done.
Enter Paul, runs quickly to Achard.
My father!
Oh, is it thou? I did not hope for these joys.
And could you suppose that the moment I heard of your sickness?
But I did not know where to look for thee, where send thee a message.
I was at the chateau. I heard all, and hastened to see you. But how is it you are left alone here, no attendant?
They have kept the doctor from me. They refused to send me the priest.
Let me get a horse, and in an hour.
An hour hence will be too late. Too well, I feel, the physician can aid me no more. But a priest...
Father, I cannot replace a priest's sacred mission, but I can talk to you of heaven, its greatness, its goodness.
Yes, but let us first have done with the things of this world, that nothing may disturb our thoughts of heaven. I hear the Marquis is also dying.
So they say.
The moment he is dead, you know, the papers in this wardrobe are to be delivered to you.
You told me so.
If I die before him, if I die without a priest, to whom shall I entrust that sacred deposit?
Shows him a key under his pillow.
Take that key. It opens that wardrobe. You will there find a small box. You are a man of honor. Swear that thou wilt not open that box till after the death of the Marquis.
I do solemnly swear.
Heaven bless you. Now I can die in peace.
You can die like an honest man. The Son gives you his hand in this world. The Father will welcome you in the next. Thou trusty friend, obedient to the living, faithful to the dead.
Would to heaven I had for once disobeyed him. I might have prevented that duel. I should not have been a witness. 'Tis this, Paul, I would have said to the priest. That fault weighs heavily on my conscience, that solitary duel. Murder, I should call it. Am I not a sharer in that crime?
No, Father. I am ignorant whether the laws of what they call honor in this world stand fair in the eyes of heaven; whether our religion, forbidding crime, permits a fellow creature seeking another's blood for vengeance' sake, or if the hand of heaven directs the pistol or the sword. This I know not, but I feel I should have acted in your place, as you have done. If I am wrong, then do I share your error, and more than any other man have a right to pardon you. I, in my name, in the name of my dead father, pardon you.
Bless you, my son, for bringing comfort to a dying sinner. Horrid are the pangs of remorse. They lead to doubts of heaven's power. And who doubts that, doubts punishment.
Hear me, Achard. I also doubted. I also was an unbeliever, till reason shed its light upon me. Seek for heaven in the works of its creation. Then began my wanderings, with an eternal secret between heaven, the wide ocean, and myself. In the solitudes of that glorious new world, roaming through wilds, then perhaps for the first time pressed by human footsteps, no roof but the blue canopy of heaven, no resting place but the damp ground. There I awoke. There the all-powerful voice of nature spoke to me first, in all her glory. For a long time did I wander ere I understood that powerful language amid the living works of nature. The limpid stream, the wild cataract, the forest tree, the perfume of flowers and plants. The mist vanished from my eyes, the weight which oppressed my heart disappeared. Then I understood the universal homage all nature yields to her Creator. I looked towards the ocean, and a brighter light, a deeper conviction shone upon my mind. Earth is a limited sphere, the ocean the immensity, the most powerful, the grandest of the works of God. I heard it roaring as an angry lion. He spoke, and it crouched down, as a dog before its master. I saw it rise like the giants of old, storming the heavens. The tempest raged, its furious waves struggled with the lightning to drown the thunder's roar. Then again bright and unruffled as a mirror, reflecting the clear light of even, the last star of heaven. On earth I learned the existence of a Creator. On the ocean I beheld his power. In solitude, amid the tempest, heard his voice. Then all doubts left me. I became a Christian. I believed and prayed.
Ashar kneels down, his hands joined in prayer, praying half loud.
Father of heaven, I believe in thee.
See, Father, a priest would not have spoken to thee as I have done. I speak to you as a rude sailor, more used to words of death than comfort. Forgive me.
Thou madest me believe and pray like thee. What could a priest do more?
He goes towards his bed, assisted by Paul.
What thou hast told me is great and glorious. Let me think of it. Let me reflect on it.
Lays down on his bed.
When I feel death approaching, I will call thee.
Paul closes the curtains on him.
Rest easy. I shall be here.
Sits down on the chair at the foot of the bed, for a moment absorbed in his thoughts. Suddenly a voice outdoors is heard. Margaret from outside.
Paul?
Paul quickly raising his head.
Who calls me?
Margaret outside, but near the door.
Paul!
Paul running towards the door.
It is her voice.
He opens the door and finds Margaret, her hair dishevelled and sinking down.
What is the matter? Tell me.
Margaret falling on her knees.
Help! Help!
Paul raising her.
What art thou afraid of? Who pursues thee? Why come at this hour?
Oh, I would have fled at any hour, by day or night, far as the earth would bear me, till I could find a bosom on which to shed my tears, an arm to protect me. I would have fled. Paul! Paul!
Throwing herself in his arms.
My father is dead.
Poor child! Thou hast fled from the house of a dead man, to enter one of a dying man. Death behind thee in thy dwelling. It meets thee again in the cottage.
Yes, yes, but here, an easy, quiet death. There, death in despair. Oh, Paul, if you knew what I have seen!
Tell me all.
You know the terrible effect your voice and presence had on my father.
I do.
He was carried speechless to his apartment.
I spoke to your mother. He heard me. It is no fault of mine.
I could not resist my anguish, even though sure to irritate my mother. I went upstairs. The door was shut. I knocked softly. I heard a feeble voice ask, "Who was there?"
And your mother?
My mother was gone. She had locked the door. But when he knew my voice, when I told him who I was, Margaret, his daughter, he told me to look for a private staircase, which leads to his chamber by a closet. An instant after, I was at his bedside. He gave me his blessing, a father's blessing. I trust God will give me his.
Yes, quiet thyself. Weep for thy father, my child. But weep no longer for thyself, for thou art saved.
That moment, Paul, when I was kneeling down, kissing his hands, that moment, I heard my mother's footsteps. She came by the private staircase. I knew her voice. So did my father. He embraced me, for the last time, and made me a sign to hasten away. I obeyed, but I was so bewildered, so agitated, I mistook the door, and instead of taking the staircase by which I came, I entered a closet having no passage out. My mother entered, with a priest. Oh, she was paler than a dying man himself.
Great God!
The priest sat down near the pillow. My mother remained standing at the foot of the bed. Paul, do you hear? I was there. I cannot escape. A daughter forced to hear her father's confession. Is it not horrible? I sat not. I fell on my knees. I shut my eyes that I might not see. I prayed that I might not hear. Yet against my will, I saw, I heard, and what I heard forever will remain impressed upon my memory. I heard my father speak of broken vows, a duel, murder, and at each word my mother's cheek grew paler. Raising her voice to drown his dying words, she cried, "Believe him not, Holy Father! He is mad, he is insane, believe him not!" Paul, what a horrid sight! Sacrilegious, unholy! A cold dew came upon my brow. I fainted.
Heavenly justice!
When I recovered, all around was silent as the grave. My mother and the priest were gone. I looked upon the bed and saw beneath the sheet a corpse. All was over. An icy fear, unconquerable, mortal, forced me from the room. I fled downstairs, I know not how. I passed through doors, passages. At last, the cool air told me I was outside the house. I recollected you had told me I should find you here, and I rushed madly on. I fancied I beheld shadows, spectres pursue me. Turning an alley, or was I mad? I thought I saw my mother in her mourning robes. 'Twas then you heard my cries. A few steps more, and I fell down before this door. Had it not opened, I had died, for I was distracted, and I thought... Listen. Hark!
Going nearer to Paul.
I hear footsteps.
The door in the centre opens. The Marchioness appears. Margaret, hiding herself behind the window curtains, and covering Paul also with the window curtains.
Look! Look!
Enter Marchioness. The stage is dark. Marchioness enters slowly, shuts the door after her, locks it, and without seeing Paul and Margaret, goes through the first chamber, enters the second, and sits down near the foot of Achar's bed. Achar opens a side of the curtains.
Who is there?
Marchioness opens the other curtains.
It is I.
You? What do you want near the bed of a dying man?
I come to offer thee a proposal.
To lose my soul, is it not?
No, to save it. Achar, thou askest nothing in this world but a priest. Is it not so?
You refused me your chaplain.
He will be here in 5 minutes, if thou wishest it.
Let him come, but make haste.
But if I procure thee the peace of heaven, wilt thou procure for me peace in this world? Say.
What can I do for you?
Dying, thou wouldst have a priest. Living, thou knowest what I would have of thee.
You would shut the gates of heaven to me by a perjury.
I'll open them to you by a pardon.
That pardon is already granted to me.
And by whom?
The only one who had a right to grant it.
Marchioness ironically.
Has Morley come back from heaven?
No, but he left a son on earth.
And didst thou also see him again?
Yes.
And didst thou tell him all?
All.
And the papers, the documents of his birth?
The Marquis was not dead. The papers are here.
Achar,
Falls on her knees.
Achar, have pity on me.
You, kneeling before me? Madam.
Yes, old man, yes. I am kneeling to thee. I supplicate, I implore thee. Thou holdest in thy dying hands my honour, the honour of one of the noblest, the oldest families of France. My past, my future life. Those papers, oh, they are my life or death. More, my name, my reputation, that of my children. Well dost thou know what I have suffered to bear that name spotless. Didst thou believe that my heart was not that of a mortal, did not contain the feelings of a loving woman, a wife, a mother? I smothered them all, one after the other. That strife was a long one, for during 20 years it lasted.
Margaret, in the next room.
What does she say? Oh, heaven!
Here, heaven wills that all shall come to the light of day.
Madam, you doubted heaven's goodness. You forgot. He pardoned the adulteress.
Yes, he did, but not man. Were they not about to immolate her ere he came? And men, who for 20 generations were wont to respect my name, to honour our family, would now despise me, cover me with shame. Ah, my God!
Rises.
My God, I have suffered such bitter pangs. Thou wilt pardon me in thy mercy. And am I alone exposed to the railings of the world? Will not my 2 children bear the same disgrace? Is not the other, the firstborn? He is my child, well do I know it. So is Emmanuel, so is Margaret. But have I a right to force them to call him brother? Hast thou forgotten he is the son of the Marquis Doré by right of law, the head of our family? Dost thou forget that he is master of our titles, of our fortune? Let him invoke that law, and what remains to Emmanuel? The Templars' Maltese cross. To Margaret, a convent.
Margaret, aside.
Yes, yes, a convent, where I may pray for you, my mother.
Silence!
Oh, madam, you know him not. His noble nature.
No, but I know the human heart. He can recover a name, a fortune, who has neither. And canst thou believe he would give up that fortune, that name?
Yes, he will. Only ask him to do so.
And what right have I to ask that sacrifice of him? What right to beg of him to spare me, Emmanuel, Margaret? He will say, Madame, I know you not, I never saw you. Who are you?
Achard, growing fainter.
In his name, madam, in his name, I engage, I swear.
Marchioness, bending over him and watching the progress of his death.
Thou engagest, thou swearest, and on thy bare word thou wouldst have me risk the years that I may live against the few minutes left thee to die. I have begged of thee, I have implored thee for the last time. Yet do I once more beg thee, implore thee to restore those papers.
They are not mine. They're his.
Marchioness, with energy.
I must have them, I tell thee.
Oh, merciful heaven!
Nobody is near thee. We are alone. That key, sayst thou, never quits thee.
Would you tear it from a dying man?
Marchioness, with a smothered voice, and falling down on a chair.
No, I shall wait.
Achard, rising on his seat.
Let me die in peace. Leave me.
Taking the crucifix.
Leave me, in the name of heaven.
He falls back on his bed, dying. Marchioness, bending down under the crucifix.
Oh.
She shuts the bed curtains.
Oh, horror, horror!
On your knees, Margaret.
Marchioness, passing her arm between the closed curtains, tears the key from Achard's hands, rises, goes towards the wardrobe, looking at the bed in terror. Paul meets her halfway, and when she is about opening the wardrobe with the key, he takes her by the arm. She cries out.
Ah!
Give me that key, mother. The Marquis is dead. Those papers are mine now.
Marchioness moves back in astonishment, sinks in the armchair.
Heavenly justice! It is my son.
Margaret, on her knees in the other room, raising her hands to heaven.
Gracious heaven! It is my brother!
End of Act 4. Act 5 of Paul Jones by Alexandre Dumas, translated by William Berger. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Act 5, Scene 1. Same decoration as in the third act. Chandeliers lighted, and the candles nearly burnt down. A fire in the chimney. A table with paper, writing materials, etc. Marchioness alone, her arm resting on the table, her eyes fixed on the contract, where Lectoure had signed his name already, and the Marquis partly his. She rings the bell on the table. A servant appears in the door.
Tell Miss Doré I wish to see her.
Exit servant. The Marchioness returns, melancholy and immovable, to her first position.
What a night! And after all the strife is not yet over. That the dead should leave an heir to his secret, my son. That name which fills the heart of a mother with joy makes me shudder. Yes, there is no other help.
Rings the bell. Enter La Feuille.
Call Count Emmanuel.
He went out at 10 o'clock this morning with Baron de Lectoure.
Gone out?
I saw him get into the carriage.
Call his servant.
He went with him.
In whose carriage?
The Baron's.
Let my own be got ready immediately, and call my daughter.
Exit La Feuille.
Let her but sign this contract. Let her but quit me, and go to town with her brother. They must remain in ignorance of all. Then shall I be left alone. I will call him. I will offer him my whole fortune in exchange for those papers. And can money or pity move his heart, then may I hope that fatal secret will be buried forever in those gloomy walls. Oh, could they but speak, what horrid tales would they relate!
Enter Margaret. Her entry makes the Marchioness raise her head. Margaret stretches out her hand to her mother.
Madam?
Approach. Why are you so pale? Why do you tremble?
Margaret, hesitating.
My father's death, so sudden, so unexpected. I suffered much last night.
Marchioness, with a smothered voice.
Yes, yes. The young tree bows down before the wind and becomes leafless. The old oak resists the fury of the tempest. I also, Margaret, have suffered. I too passed a terrible night. And yet you see me calm, composed.
Heaven gave you a strong, stern soul, madam. Do not ask the same fortitude and sternness of others. You would crush them.
I ask nothing from you but obedience, Margaret. The Marquis is dead. Emmanuel is now the head of our family. I want you instantly to leave home for town with him.
I go to Rennes. And why?
Because the chapel of our chateau is too small to see, at one and the same time, the betrothal of the daughter and the funeral of the father.
Mother, piety and respect for my poor departed parent should at least let a longer interval take place between two ceremonies so opposite.
True piety is obedience to the last will of the deceased. Look at this contract. See the first letters of your father's name.
Oh, I ask of you, when my father traced those letters, which death interrupted, was he in sound mind? Did he act from his own free will?
I do not know. But what I do know is, that the influence under which he acted survives him. Parents, as long as they exist, represent heaven on earth. Heaven commanded terrible things to me, and I obeyed. Act like me. Obey.
Mother, 3 days ago, tears in my eyes, despair in my heart, I rushed from before my brother to the feet of that man, from that man to my father. No one would listen to me. No one could understand me. Cold ambition or madness drowned my voice. Now here am I, face to face with you, mother. You, the last to whom I once more address my prayers. You too should understand me better than any other. Therefore hear me. Had I only to sacrifice my will to your happiness, willingly would I make that sacrifice. My love only, also that. But shall I sacrifice my son, my child? Oh, no! You are a mother. A mother's heart beats in your breast. And I also, madam, I am a mother.
Mother? Mother, yes, to your disgrace.
Call it so, madam, if you will. Still, I am a mother. I feel as a mother. That holy feeling is all-powerful. Well, tell me then. You must understand these things better than I do. Heaven instilled a feeling in the heart of our parents, a powerful feeling which speaks loudly. And our children, have they none? Whom obey, if the voice of parent and child disagree?
Never, never will you hear the voice of your child, for never shall you behold him again.
Never see my child again? And who can answer for that?
Forever will his birth remain a mystery to him.
And if he learns it one day, if he calls me to account, such things may happen, madam. And knowing all this, do you still persist in my signing that fatal contract?
Marchioness, after a moment's silence.
Sign the contract.
Margaret, pausing.
But if my husband ever discovers the existence of that child, if he calls the father of that child to account, the shame cast in his name, his honour, if in a deadly conflict, a solitary and lonely duel, he kills the lover, if his conscience reproach him for that murder, poignant remorse torments him. If he hears a voice from the grave call him assassin, and if that husband then become mad...
Marchioness, frightened and agitated.
No more. Silence.
Then you would let me be shut up with a maniac, so that I may keep my name, and that of my other children, spotless. You would then let every living being keep away from me, from him. My heart becomes iron, that I should not feel. My eyes are marble, that I should not weep. And wear a widow's garb, a widow's mourning, before my husband's death. You would have my hair turn grey 20 years before the time.
Silence, silence.
Then you would, so that horrid secret should die with its keeper. I should forbid the physician and the priest to approach their dying beds, that I should, in despair, in agony, go myself to close, not the eyes, but the mouth of the dying, smother their last breath?
Marchioness, in despair and wildly.
Silence! In the name of heaven, silence!
Shall I sign the contract now, my mother? And all that will come to pass, the malediction of heaven will be completed. The crimes of the parents will be punished in their children, until the 3rd and 4th generation.
Oh, heaven! Am I not humbled now? Am I not punished enough?
Margaret falling on her knees before the Marchioness.
Pardon me, madam. Pardon me, mother.
Marchioness rising.
Yes, pardon. Ask pardon, unnatural child. Thou who callest vengeance on thy mother. Child, that strikest thy mother.
Pity! Mercy! I know not what I said, mother. You had driven me to distraction. I was insane.
Marchioness, raising her hands over the head of her daughter.
O heaven, thou hast heard the words of my child. Never can I forget them. Can thy goodness forgive them? Ere I punish, witness thou that I will spare her my malediction.
Advances, in order to go away. Margaret, taking hold of her robe, falls on her knees, crying out.
Mother, mother! Pity, mercy, oh, mother!
Marchioness turns towards her daughter, looks at her with a terrible look, pushes her back, and exit on the right side. Margaret, falling down and crying out.
Oh!
Fainting. Enter Paul by the centre door. Paul taking his sister in his arms, and raising her.
Margaret, sister, I am here, thy brother.
Margaret recovering.
Who calls me? Paul. Ah, thou alone! Paul, my guardian angel, sent by heaven.
rises, assisted by Paul.
That contract there? Your fainting explains all. It is time to put an end to all these horrors, and to see the Marchioness at once. Margaret, tell your mother that Captain Paul is awaiting her orders.
I go. Must I not also implore her pardon?
Paul conducts her to the door on the right hand. Exit Margaret.
I can well explain the feelings of the Marchioness. 20 years' silence, solitude, anguish, rendered of no avail to her. Her secret revealed, she knows not how, to one who ought to have been the very last person from whom, above all else, she would have hidden it.
Enter Emmanuel through the back door, 2 pistols in his hands. Paul salutes him with a kind and fraternal expression. Emmanuel returns his salute proudly. Emmanuel places the pistols on the table and steps at some distance from Paul.
I was looking for you, sir, although I hardly knew where to find you, for, like an evil genius, you possess the gift of being everywhere and nowhere. A servant at last told me he saw you enter the chateau. I am much obliged to you, sir. You have saved me the trouble this time to seek you farther.
I am happy, then, that my own wish to see you, sir, though from a different motive, met yours this time. Here I am. What is your pleasure?
Can you not guess, sir? I am astonished. Then little do you know the duties of a gentleman, a soldier, and you heap insult on insult.
Paul calmly.
Believe me, Emmanuel.
Emmanuel haughtily.
Yesterday I was Count Emmanuel. Today my name is Marquis d'Oray. Do not forget it, sir.
Paul smiling.
I say, then, that you know but little of the feelings of a gentleman, if you suppose that I would let any one but myself settle the affair, which was one of your own provocation. Yes, sir, you threw yourself in my way, not I in yours.
Paul smiling.
The Marquis d'Oray forgets his visit on board my ship.
Enough of that, sir. Come we to the point. Yesterday, I do not know from what strange and inexplicable sentiment, when I offered you, but not only a gentleman, an officer, nay, any brave man accepts instantly, without a minute's hesitation, I say, sir, you declined a meeting, and shifting your provocation, you quarrelled with another, not exactly a stranger to our dispute, but one whom delicacy should have taught you to respect.
Paul carelessly.
Believe me, sir, I only obeyed a duty which left me no choice. You offered to fight me. I could not accept your offer, and any other was indifferent to me. I am too much used to fighting, sir, to fights terrible and deadly, to view such an encounter in any other light than as one of those daily accidents of my profession. Remember, sir, this duel was not of my seeking. You proposed it, and as I could not fight you, I accepted Baron de Lectoure, as I would any other substitute. And, had I absolutely to kill somebody, I preferred that it might be a puppy, a useless, insolent coxcomb, rather than a brave and honest gentleman who would have considered himself disgraced, even should he only dream of accepting that infamous bargain which Baron de Lectoure seriously proposed to you. Well, I met him. No blood was shed. I disarmed him twice, and might have killed him. I spared his life. Ask nothing more, seek no other explanation, for upon my honour I cannot give you any.
Emmanuel impatiently.
And you did really believe that mock fight would satisfy me, because I did not prevent it? Did you think that cloak would save you from my anger? No, sir, enough of your whims. We live in a world, not of fiction, but of reality. Your presence in this house has been fatal enough in reality. Surround it with no more romance. Lusignan has returned, in spite of his Majesty's order of exile. My sister, for the first time, refuses to obey her mother. My father killed by seeing you. Those misfortunes all are your work. Your presence converted this house into one of woe, of misery, and you must answer to me for all the evils you have done. Therefore, sir, speak to me as man to man, in open daylight, face to face. Speak to me, sir. See, I am as calm as you are. If you have anything of importance to disclose, tell me so. I will hear you.
Paul calmly.
The secret you want to know is not mine. Believe me, sir. Insist no longer. Farewell.
Emmanuel rushing towards the door and barring the passage.
Oh, you do not leave me, sir. We are alone here in this chamber. I did not bid you come. You came at your own pleasure. Now hear me. You have insulted me. You owe me satisfaction. Fight you must, and you must fight me.
You are mad, sir. I have told you already it is impossible. Then let me—
Emmanuel taking a pistol.
Take care. Take care.
Paul goes towards the chimney.
Sir, vainly did I address you as a gentleman. I might not treat you as a villain. You came to us, strangers to you. Why and how I know not. If you came not to steal our money, our jewels, you came to steal a daughter's duty to her mother, a friend's sacred promise to a friend. In either case, you are a villain who lays hand on a treasure, my honour the most precious of all. Do not provoke me, do not insult me. I will hear no more. Take that pistol.
He throws a pistol at Paul's feet.
Defend yourself.
He takes the other pistol. Paul, without changing his position.
You may kill me, sir, if you choose, though I hope heaven will not permit so great a crime. But you cannot force me to fight you. I told you so. I tell you so again.
Take up that pistol, sir. Take it up, I tell you. Defend yourself.
Paul, without answering, shrugs his shoulders and pushes the pistol back with his foot. Emmanuel continuing exasperated.
Well, then, if you will not defend yourself like a man, die like a dog.
Raises the pistol towards Paul's breast. Enter Margaret. Margaret cries out, rushes towards Emmanuel. At the same time his pistol is fired, but the ball's direction is changed by the position of Margaret, passes above Paul's head, and strikes the looking-glass over the chimney. Margaret rushing towards Paul and pressing him in her arms.
My brother! My brother! Are you hurt?
Emmanuel lets his pistol fall.
Your brother! Your brother!
Well, Emmanuel, do you understand now why I would not fight you?
The door in the centre opens. The Marchioness, pale, enters, stops in the door, raises her eyes to heaven. Emmanuel and Margaret throw themselves at her feet, each holding one of her hands, and covering it with tears and kisses. Marchioness, after a moment's silence.
I thank you, my children. Now leave me alone with that young man.
Emmanuel and Margaret rise, bow with respect, and exeunt. Marchioness locks the door after her children are gone, walks a few steps in the chamber, then, without looking at Paul, goes towards the table on which the contract is lying, and leans on the back of the armchair before the table, her eyes bent to the ground.
You wish to see me, sir. Here I am. You wish to speak to me. I am ready to hear you.
Paul, with an accent full of tears.
Yes, madam. Yes, I wish to speak to you. Since that wish was mine for the first time, it has not left my heart. I did remember a woman, as a dream, long, long ago, gliding to my cradle. In my infant dreams I took her for the guardian angel of my childhood. Since that time, still so fresh in my memory, more than once, madam, believe me, I awoke, starting, as if I felt a mother's kiss imprinted on my cheek. Then, perceiving no one near me, I called that woman, believing she was gone out only, and that my voice would recall her. For 20 years, madam, have I called her, and now, for the first time, she answers at my call. Is it true? Often have I shuddered at the thought that you were afraid to see me. Is it true? Alas, I am afraid this moment. Have you nothing to say to me?
Marchioness, with a suffocated voice.
And if I was afraid to see you come back, was I in the wrong? Only yesterday I perceived you for a moment, and that terrible secret, which until now was unknown to any but heaven and myself, is known to my 2 children.
Is it my fault if heaven undertook the mission to reveal it? Was it I who conducted Margaret despairing and trembling, to her dying father, to implore his aid, and made her an unwilling witness to his dying confession? Did I bring her to Achardes? Was it not you, madam, who followed her hither? As for Emmanuel, the report of the pistol you heard, that broken glass, do they not bear witness that I preferred to die rather than save my life at the risk of your secret? No, no, madam, believe me, I am the instrument only, not the arm. No, madam, Heaven alone directed all for the best, in his almighty providence, that your two children, so long banished from your embraces, might throw themselves at your feet.
Marchioness, hesitating.
But there is a third. What may I hope, what may I fear from him?
Let him accomplish a last duty, madam. That done, he will kneel before you, and ask for your commands.
And what is that duty?
To restore his brother to that rank to which he is entitled. His sister, that happiness which she has lost. His mother, that peace of mind, that tranquillity which she implores, and cannot find.
And for all that, the minister, thanks to you, refuses to Baron de Lectoure the regiment which he had promised him for my son.
Paul, taking a commission from his pocket.
Because the king has already granted it to me for my brother.
Marchioness looks at the commission.
Then you would give Margaret to a man without a name, a fortune, and more, an exile, a proscribed.
You are mistaken, madam. I wish to unite Margaret to the man she loves. I wish to give Margaret not to Lusignan the exile, but to Baron Anatole de Lusignan, his Majesty's Governor General for the island of Guadeloupe, who is waiting for his wife on board my ship. There is his commission. Take them both, madam, and deliver them yourself to your children.
Marchioness looks at the parchments and receives them from Paul.
Yes, I confess. This satisfies Emmanuel's ambition, makes Margaret happy.
And restores you to peace, to comfort, madam. For Emmanuel and Margaret leave tonight, she to join her husband, he his regiment, and you will remain alone in this old castle, which you have longed to have so often. Am I right, madam, or am I mistaken?
But how to break off with Baron de Lectoure?
The Marquis is dead, madam. Is it not a sufficient cause to postpone a marriage when a husband, a father, is dead?
Marchioness looks at him a moment, sits down, writes a few lines, and rings for a servant. Enter servant.
This letter, 2 hours hence, to Baron de Lectoure.
Servant takes the letter, bows, and exits.
Now, sir, as you have done justice to the innocent, now have pity on the guilty. You have those papers which affirm your birth. You are the eldest, at least the law gives you that privilege. You are entitled to the name, to the fortune of Emmanuel and Margaret. What do you ask in exchange for those papers?
Paul takes the papers out of his pocket.
Permit me, only once, to call you mother. Call me your son, once only.
Marchioness, rising.
Is it possible?
You talk of rank, of name, of fortune. Is my name not known? Have I not acquired a rank which few men of my age possess? I have a name, the name of Paul Jones, blessed by a free people, the terror of her enemies. Am I not the adopted child of a great nation? Did not the immortal Washington call me the champion of liberty? Is not my name blessed by millions of happy freemen? Wealth, riches, what have I to do with them? I might acquire wealth enough to be a king, to leave an emperor's fortune behind me. Are not the thanks, is not the gratitude of America worth all the paltry honors, the baubles a king could bestow on me? What have I to do, then, with your name, your rank, your fortune? Have you nothing else to offer, nothing else to bribe me with? Oh, give me, restore me what I never had, what I have missed everywhere. Give me what I cannot wrestle for. Give me what God gave me, what misfortune took from me, what you alone can restore to me, you alone. Oh, give me a mother. Oh, let me call you mother. Call me son.
Marchioness, moved to tears.
My son, my son, my son.
Paul goes quickly to the chimney, throws the papers in the fire, throws himself at the feet of the Marchioness, who has fallen back on her chair.
My mother! Ah, at last, that name, that sweet sound from your lips, from your heart. So long have I asked, waited, prayed for it. Thanks! Oh, heaven! Thanks!
Hides his head in the bosom of the Marchioness. Marchioness raises his head, looks at him.
Oh, look at me! Let me weep a mother's tears of joy. 20 long years have my eyes been dry. These are my first tears. Give me thy hand.
She places it on her heart.
20 years have passed, and this is the first joyful feeling, the first delight my heart has known. Come to my arms. The first embrace, the first kiss.
Kisses him.
From my child for 20 years. Merciful Father, I thank thee. The sinner is pardoned. Thou hast restored tears to my eyes, joy to my heart. Thou hast restored me the embraces of my child. Thanks! O heaven, thanks! O my son!
Kissing him.
Mother!
And I was afraid to see thee again. I trembled when I did see thee again. I did not know, I did not know what feelings lay dormant in my own heart. Oh, bless thee, bless thee! I bless thee!
At this moment the bell of the chapel strikes. A signal gun is heard. Paul kneels again.
My son, what wouldst thou?
Did you not hear, mother?
A second signal gun is heard.
2 signal guns.
One more, and I must haste away on board.
Third signal gun is heard.
Then thou wilt quit me already?
This very night must I depart.
Blessed be the son who, after 20 years of sorrow, of anguish, has restored peace to his poor mother's mind. May heaven pour his blessings on thy devoted head for ever and ever. We shall never meet again in this world, but I shall hear of thee, shall I not? And when that name strikes my ear, the name of Paul Jones, when a great nation pronounces it with veneration, then will I kneel and pour a mother's blessing before the throne of grace. Bless thee, my child, my son. Farewell, farewell.
Paul, rising.
Farewell, mother. Bless thee. Farewell.
Farewell, farewell.
Farewell, mother. Farewell, farewell. I leave thee, mother. Thy son has done his duty. Now to my adopted country, glorious America. Farewell, farewell.
Exit Paul hurriedly. Marchioness looks round her.
Gone, then I am left alone. Let me pray for him on his father's grave.
End of Act 5. End of Paul Jones by Alexandre Dumas. Translated by William Berger.